Welcome back to Hey Eintracht Frankfurt, the Bundesliga podcast covering everything there is to know in the English language about Eintracht Frankfurt. I'm Chris here in the middle of the Mitten state of Michigan right now. A little bit state of late spring. Summer is just around the corner. We're going to be in the 90s this week here, 90 degrees Fahrenheit. That is not comfortable for me, but I'm a little bit of a snow angel up here. I appreciate everyone hanging with us the last few weeks. It's been a busy end of the season for Eintracht Frankfurt, the men and the women. If you caught the women's season in review that John and I did, we appreciate you listening. If you haven't listened in, go back and listen to it. I thought we did a good job recapping the women's side. And we're going to talk about the men's side today. And no one else better to do that than my buddy from down I-96 in the northern suburbs of Detroit, Garrett. Let's talk Eintracht. How you doing, buddy?
Chris, I'm doing good. It's good to be back on. Much like we were just talking beforehand about how our Detroit Tigers snatched defeat from the jaws of victory tonight, which they took the lead from weird things, so maybe this is a result. And I think this is talking about the season that was. It's going to be kind of soothing, I hope.
I feel like being a Detroit sports fan in general is a lot like being an Eintracht Frankfurt fan, because we go through long spells of misery, and then when things turn good for a couple of years, it's like the greatest feeling in the world. It's just, that's sports life in general. If you're not winning, you're not happy. But it seems like the spells just go on forever around here, and rebuilds last way too long. But it's not a Michigan sports podcast. It is a Eintracht Frankfurt podcast. We appreciate the feedback from everyone that's listened to the show. If you want to get in touch with the show, HEFpod.com, HEFpod.com. All of the links to our social media is located at the top of the page there. Of course, our Discord chat, X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, all the links are available there. And some new features coming to the website this summer. I'm already testing out a couple new features with the data. The statistics zone was a big hit. We are going to renew that license for next season. As our buddy Chris in Austin said, damn, you guys are faster than ESPN. Yes, we are. We have the best stats program in the league, and that is not a biased statement. So, Garrett, we're going to get into it. This is our 38th episode of the show for this year. I'm not keeping stats on who's been involved with how many, but you've been here for a fair amount of the season. As always, it was to be expected. It was a roller coaster of a year, and we're not going to go game by game, but we're going to hit on a few features of the season. And before we talk about any particular matches, the big question mark going into the 23-24 season was Randall Kolo Muani. Was he going to be a member of this squad when the season started? How long would he be part of the squad? And right up until the last few hours of the transfer market window on September 1st, nobody really knew. Eintracht comes out on August 20th, opening Bundesliga play after having a cup win, which, whatever, did their job. But to open the league with a rivalry victory over Darmstadt sounds like routine business, but with the new staff and lots of question marks out there, lots of new faces, it was anything but routine. And with RKM scoring the opening goal right before the half, we're all kind of convinced, hey, we're on the road to a championship season. Not really. I don't think any of us predicted that. But how much do you think the questions around RKM's position on the roster affected the early start of the season?
I think this was very similar to what we were experiencing the previous offseason with Filip Kostic. And I think the even more messed up thing about it is when you look at that starting lineup, it wasn't just Randall Kolo Muani that was on that starting lineup. We had Jesper Lindstrom on that starting lineup. And we had just lost Gibril So, we were not expecting to sell. We knew Kamada was going to be gone. We knew Evan Ndika was going to be gone. So you have maybe your two biggest pieces at that time. Within basically 10 days, I think, you lose both of them. Lidstrom, granted, we made a lot money I didn't think we'd ever make on Jesper Lidstrom. But we left it late again for the second offseason in a row. And this one was, I think, even a bit more frustrating because maybe the writing was on the wall with RKM, because didn't I recall he wanted to try to force his way out of Nantes a year early to come to us in the summer of 21. Yeah. Didn't happen. So he joins us on a free. And then he goes back to France in similar fashion. The only difference is his previous club makes about 100 million euros. Did that make then this season be the reason for why the season was? I'm not going to say yes completely, because I feel like we still have we have a talented group of young players this year. But as we're going to talk about, I think you have heard me said this was, and maybe this is coming from a biased take, I think we witnessed the most boring sixth place team in the Bundesliga for a season. And the fact that it might be our own beloved club might be the reason why I'm feeling that way. Just because I was trying to think what was the longest period that we felt inspired this season? And it was hard
maybe a couple matches. I know we'll get into December because that was kind of the peak. You brought up a good point. I forgot about Jesper Lindstrom. And I think that's an important point to mention, because we did get more money than was expected. And I think part of that, I haven't followed him closely since he left to know how well he's doing. But I think you see that some of these guys have a value beyond what you see on the stat line. I was big on him because I watched him play in the Danish league. I've watched him perform at the junior levels for the Denmark national team. The guy is versatile. He's quick. He's speedy. He draws attention. And I think he has the ability to be the most creative player on the pitch when he wants to. And I think losing that just kind of hurt us in a way that we were not ready for.
You want to know his stat lines?
Yes, please.
22 games played, 412 minutes. No goals, no assists, 2 yellow cards.
So maybe it was a situation, where we had the system that fit him. He was around players that he played well with. Because when he played well, Frankfurt won a lot of matches. They were a championship-level team when he was at his best. And losing RKM and him at the end of August certainly hurt our rhythm, as we're going to talk about in a minute. Of course, reminder, the Pokal victory over Lokomotiv Leipzig, and then the matchup against Levski Sofia in the Conference League playoff. A couple matches that probably were closer than they needed to be. That was a draw in the first leg, and thank God the second leg was at home. Ngamkum and Shkiri saved us in the last 15 minutes of that one. Really didn't want that going to extra time. That would have been a nightmare scenario. But, we escaped the end of August, and we roll into September. Okay, transfer deadline's behind us. We lost RKM. So it's on Omar Marmoush. And I thought he responded well. I think in the situation he was put in, without a lot of help up top, a little step back in the quality of attack, there was going to be a lot placed on his shoulders with not a whole lot of support. But I thought he did a reasonable job managing that. But after that victory over Darmstadt, it was not until September 30th. No, I'm lying. October 8th that we put up more than one goal in a league match. So after the victory over Darmstadt, 4 straight draws, none of which were above a 1-1 score. One was scoreless against Freiburg, and a 2-0 defeat to Wolfsburg, before a 2-0 victory to Heidenheim. Now, that's concerning because you look at those first 5 matchups, Darmstadt, Mainz, Cologne, Bochum, and Freiburg, even Wolfsburg, you say, man, that's 7 games right there that should be winnable. For the expectations we had, even losing our top scorer, I think you got to be able to put up more than 1 goal against those sides. And when they didn't, thought, damn, man, it's going to be tough. I mean, that month of September, besides the play in Europa Conference League, which we'll talk about in a minute, I really had a lot of concerns going into the fall. How do you feel about that?
I just think I think our best, that was just a painful run, and it reminded me a lot in a way of how the run started in the 21-22 season. In fact, a lot of the stretches this season remind me of that 21-22 side that while they won the Europa League, they were lackluster in Bundesliga play. I think I'm trying to remember what that team finished in.
11.
Yeah, they finished 11th. And, I look at that and I see so much parallels between that team and this team. The only difference is that team, I think, had a little bit more spine, and we would have moments where we would screw up. And even in that stretch, and we lost the Conference League game in PAOK because of moments like slip-ups, moments of not thinking clearly, and the Köln match where, we dropped, even in the whole season, we dropped 5 out of 6 points against the team that got relegated. That struggled to score goals all year long, and we only scored 1 in 2 games. Wolfsburg, inexcusable. Mainz, again, Omar Marmoush made that Sunday somewhat enjoyable for the time being. I think he's, I'm not going to dog Marmoush because he looked like one of the few players that showed heart and fight all year. I think Faris Chaibi.
But we needed to have someone else too. Marmoush is not the kind of guy. Think a few years back to what's his name? They went to Leipzig.
Andre Silva.
Forgetful. I can't even think of him. Yeah, the Silva season. He had some guys that were there, but they were struggling for consistency. Silva at times put that team on his back. Marmoush is a different quality. We were not going to get that from him. And I think he did very admirable given what he had. I haven't totaled all of his goals, but I know he had 12 in the league through the year. So not ideal for your top scorer, but given the lack of scoring support behind him, it's not the worst. We'll have more on stats in a while. But I thought the end of September going into October, focusing on Conference League was going to be a big thing because the ability to play at home, the European nights are always magic in Frankfurt. As much as I didn't want to be in the Conference League, I thought, it's a good opportunity to refocus the mind. And they certainly did that. Came out, beat Aberdeen 2-1 on the opening night. Marmoush with the early penalty and Robin Koch with the winner in the second half. And we're off and running in Conference League. Boy, the team that was the hardest to play in that group, and the team that ended up winning their group, PAOK out of Greece. How frustrating were those matches to watch? It was almost like watching those Benfica matches on the women's side. Just a team that is a pain in the ass to play against. They make everything difficult. And those 2 matches against them in Conference League play, you could take those back because those were difficult.
I think we made it. I mean, PAOK was a tough side, and they showed why. They went unbeaten in, I think, the group. But we made it also difficult for ourselves in those games. Moments like Trapp not being at his best or not being clinical enough when we had chances to finish in both matches. Slip-ups here and there. Jakic, in one of his final acts as an Eintracht Frankfurt player, channeling full rage. By the way, the Marmoush stats, 12 goals, 6 assists in Bundesliga play, 4 in the Conference League, 1 in the Pokal. So he had 17 goals in all competitions. So his first season in double digits throughout his professional career. So kudos to him on that. But yeah, I mean, and I think the Conference League though, because it's like Pauk had the top, like, I looked at him and again, I don't know if we're to blame because we saw that group, like, we can run this. We can run this group all day. Oh, we did not run that group.
Yeah, outside of Helsinki, there was really not an easy run in that one. Even Aberdeen gave us absolute fits at times. And jumping between 3 competitions, which is something we've done regularly now, it shouldn't be that difficult. But when you have the turnover we had, if we talk lineups for a minute, it's something that lasted all the way until the last few weeks of the year. We did not have a steady starting 11, not even a preferred 11. It was mix and match players all the way through the entire year. And I think a lot of the questions that we had about Dino and his lack of experience came about this point where we said, okay, it's now 8-10 weeks into the season. We need you to make some adjustments on the fly. What are you going to do? Right. And it felt like he was just throwing darts at a wall, hoping one would stick.
Yeah, and I think the problem, too, is you got to see some people, like, surprise me. Like, Faris Chaibi surprised me. I wasn't expecting much out of the move when we got him from Toulouse, but he turned out to be someone that had a strong first half of the year. But then I think he tapered off as other, like, moves and other people I know that we'll talk about in the second half of the year. But you look at it seemed like a couple people were the guys. You knew Trapp was going to be in the lineup unless he was hurt. You knew Omar Marmoush was going to be in. You knew one of, or both, or Scary and Larson were going to be in until Scary got hurt. But then everyone else is like, hey, is it going to be Mbembe or Buta? Is it going to be Max or Nkuku? William Pacho also, too, was someone who was a mainstay in the starting lineup in the first half of the year. But it was almost like, who's going to make this spot in there? What is our side? And even Einsgar Knopf at times, so I think had a year that was more like 21-22 than last season. But even then, he wasn't able to get something consistently for a bit to, like, make the spot his. So maybe Dino, or maybe, like, Dino's looking for the leaders in that team, and it took a little bit to get it.
And you mentioned that about Knopf. The other positions were playing the exact same game, too, where it's who is, nobody was consistent enough to hold down a spot, to play regularly in those, whether it was, the midfield or mixing the 3 or 4 guys up front, trying to get the right combination there. There was no consistency because we couldn't put up more than 2 goals or, the occasional third one. But, I look at this matchup against Dortmund, where we blew the 2-0 lead and then we blew a 3-2 lead. That one for me in late October, it was just one of those, you have the opportunity to steal points. You do everything right. You get the penalty. You're getting the depth scoring from Chaibi, and then all of a sudden it falls apart. Defensive breakdown, and Julian Brandt beats us at 83rd. Just
Dortmund outcoached us in that game because they made subs.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And it's, that Dortmund game came on the heels of a 6-0 thrashing over Helsinki in match day 3 in the Conference League. So it's just another one of those things, man, where it's like the roller coaster continues. I thought, though, that this month or this portion of the schedule, even though we really felt weird after that lost opportunity against Dortmund, we rebound with a victory in the Pokal against Victoria Cologne. And then we take Union Berlin down. They were probably at their lowest point of the season at that point.
Nacho Ferry's first goal.
There. At home. Yep, I was going to say that. Nacho Ferry shows up. Marmoush puts 2 in. That game, while we won 3-0, we only had 3 shots on target and 4 shots total.
We sat back.
We only had possession 51%. That was a match that we had to grind it out, and yet we did it. And yes, Union Berlin was horrible all season, but I thought it showed some character. And then to follow that up with another Conference League victory. And then it spiraled back downhill. A draw to Werder Bremen, lost to Stuttgart, lost to PAOK, lost to Augsburg. And then the one that really put December into a tough start before it rebounded, the loss to Saarbrücken, 2-0 in the DFB Pokal round of 16.
We recorded that night. We recorded that night.
We did. And it was hot. It was maybe the hottest I've ever been on an episode of this show, because I could not for the life of me understand what the concept was with this group, what Dino's mind was going for. And I think you and I both predicted blowout losses to Bayern. Am I wrong?
I said draw. I was hoping for. I wasn't going to predict the loss. I was manifesting a draw, and then what you and I saw in person, well, not in the Waldstadion, but at City Clubhouse.
Yeah,
was, I don't know what the fuck you would call that.
It's called a tradition, Garrett.
Yeah.
It's called a tradition. 5-1 thrashing to Bayern Munich, 3-1 at the half, but really it was over from the moment Marmoush put that one away in the 12th. I mean, I'm starting to think this 5-1 to Bayern is like the USA-Mexico 2-0 scoreline. It's just kind of what you do. Every couple of years, you meet this foe who you've had a real awkward history with, and then you go thrash them by the odd scoreline of 5-1. I'm going to call it a tradition. If we could start making it an annual tradition, that would be even better, wouldn't it?
The Saturday watch party at City Clubhouse.
They're working.
And
that's 2 in a row.
And I think, the weird part that you were talking about that stretch is going before the matchup against Werder Bremen, where we actually had to come back from 2 goals down and take a point. I think that little stretch from Heidenheim, October 8th, to Werder Bremen was probably maybe our most consistent stretch all year, with the exception of the end of December into end of January. As far as playing fluidly to an extent, being efficient enough defensively, not really giving much. 3 in Hoffenheim had to come from behind. 3 at Union, 6 at home to Helsinki, 3 against Dortmund, 2 at Bremen. I mean, we were doing great. And then I don't know if the Skiri getting hurt or the disruption in the stands when we took on Stuttgart, because after Stuttgart you said you lost to Augsburg. You got knocked out by Saarbrücken. Yeah, we beat Bayern, but then we followed it up with a loss at Aberdeen. And then, ironically, the weird thing about it is the game at Leverkusen was somehow the lesser of the 2 beatings we got from the Meisterschales this year.
It's true.
And then, had we not had a stoppage time, I'm fucking calling it early Christmas miracle for the men, we would have gone into the holiday season completely angry about the men. Counterpoint, that 90-minute stoppage time for the men means probably because of that the women didn't beat Benfica the next day in the Champions League, because the circle's got it.
I'm going to be honest. They have nothing to do with each other. But yes, as a superstitious person, I do see what you're putting down there. It was in mid-December, I don't recall the exact date, that Frankfurt locked up the 6th spot in the league, never to relinquish it again the remainder of the year.
That's
which
wild.
Is, I still haven't seen any analysis of this, but I can't think of a position, in the center to a higher portion of the table, not counting, 1 or 2 or 17 or 18 at the bottom, that goes more than half the season without changing, even just momentarily.
Was this before we beat Mönchengladbach or after?
I don't recall. It was somewhere around the week before, maybe the week after against Freiburg. No, Freiburg was in January. But, yeah, it's just crazy. So here's something for you. As we went into the break in sixth and still alive in two competitions, the feelings were, down a little bit, but not absolutely defeated because, hey, we were in sixth. But here's one for you. On January 26th, in a game against Mainz, I think that was at home against Mainz.
Friday afternoon.
So Götze scores the header, right, for the win. We were still in sixth place, but we were only 3 points back of third. In the last week of January, we were 3 points back of third place in the table. And I say that because it was so tight. One weekend, I'll give it 2 weekends, could have meant the difference between sixth place and third place. And it was only a matter of an absolute bloody run through the month of February that really took that off the board for us. As we went through February, 2-0 loss to Cologne, inexcusable. Well, let's go back before that to the end of January. A draw against Darmstadt.
We won in Leipzig. We won in Leipzig to start the year off with what I thought was intriguing loan acquisitions.
Certainly. But that was also after the 5-2 loss to Freiburg. That one being at home, which is, to me, inexcusable. That's how we started the new year.
Wait, did we? So I don't think we lost 5-2 at home the year. We had Mönchengladbach, and then we were at Leipzig.
You know what? I'm sorry. That was the friendly. I missed the friendly tab on that one. But I thought that's right. As I'm looking at the notes now, that's right. That was a friendly. But I thought it was a good opportunity to run some legs out that hadn't been there yet. With the moves in the winter transfer window, Donny Van de Beek getting a run out.
Sasha
Kalajic, pre-injury, just an opportunity to get some legs under us. And the victory over Leipzig seemed to manifest that as a good winter window for us. But then we dropped points against Darmstadt.
Blew a 2-goal lead.
Victory over Mainz, love it. But a 2-0 loss to Cologne. Inexcusable by any measure. I don't care that it was on the road. Points dropped against Bochum. Inexcusable. Then we go back into Conference League. I'm ignoring that at the moment. A draw against Freiburg. On the road, 3-3. That one's a little bit iffy for me. I thought, the fact that we blew a lead in the final minute is entirely inexcusable, but weird things happen playing at Freiburg.
We had 3 leads in that match in Freiburg.
But that's been a routine thing, whether it was Dortmund or what was the match you mentioned a few minutes ago, and then Freiburg on top of it.
Yeah, and then Kalajic got hurt. Kalajic got hurt that game.
Yeah. So, again, into February, it's more roller coaster. It's the theme of the show. It just never left this streaking, whether it was the ties or the wins followed by losses or the losses followed by draws. It's just streak upon streak. It got to the point of frustration. But then all of a sudden we got to go back into Europa Conference League against Union St. Gilles out of Belgium. And this got a little complicated.
Talking about blowing leads.
Yeah. So, Garrett, I don't know. I thought we should have won this one. I'm really disappointed at the way it played out.
We're 2-0 up in the first quarter of the match, essentially, in Belgium. The best.
You're talking about leg 2 or leg 1?
I'm talking about leg 1.
Okay.
We start off that after the run of matches we had going into that, so to give a rundown, we had, I think, 5-6 matches before Union St. Gilles at the start of the year that were competitive. We scored the 1 goal in Leipzig, but we had to defend a lot of it. We blew a 2-goal lead in Darmstadt, and we were basically defending for 45 minutes. We have no excuse Sasha Kalajic said it best that game. He said, we forgot how to play football. Essentially what he was saying. So after that, you struggle against Mainz, you win 1-0. Then we talk about the Cologne match. Inexcusable. Alidu scoring against us, fitting, because it's us. Balcom, we can't beat at home for some silly reason. And then the first 10 minutes or so in Belgium was maybe the best start we had all year, regardless of competition. Kalajic and Shaibi. Beautiful unit together. But Niels and Kuku gets isolated, and this is why Union St. Gilles, I think, were tops. I didn't see. I'm guessing they wound up in winning Belgium, as far as I knew. But they were playing out. They were got there for a reason. They fought back, and were like, all right, maybe a draw is warranted. But to then host Leg 2, European night in Frankfurt, Herzen von Europa, and we have that performance, and we turn up flat as fuck. Absolutely inexcusable. And maybe it was the Kalajic getting hurt 4 days earlier, and they're like, what the fuck do we do? But we had a couple moments, but Union outplayed. Union they wanted it more. There's no excuse to not be that. And you and I talked on the phone. I'm trying to think who was ranting more with each other, because I think that might have been one of the hottest I've been after a match. Ironically, that evening turned out to be great for us, for our local team, not for Brian, but for us, for Wayne's Avs. But we were annoyed with Frankfurt, and the fact that then we were week 2? We then had to scrape for a last minute draw against Wolfsburg that weekend.
Yep. That was Marmouche, I think, 90 plus.
Ekatike with his first assist of the year. Which, what was it? We had so much discussion while we're talking about that. I don't understand how you can be a professional footballer, let alone a young.
Here we go.
Let alone a young professional footballer, talented. And how many minutes was he health fit for, essentially, at the start of this long deal?
He was capped for 45 to 60 for the first few weeks.
But maybe 15 to 20 rollout. And it's like, because he wasn't training with PSG, you're a professional footballer being blessed with making a living. Find a way to survive.
Hey, I'm with you. I mean, I drive past my local high school and I see athletes on their own out there, working the track or doing sprints on the field, the pitch, whatever it is. I don't know how at 21 years old he came in unfit, and I know there's nothing like the competition of the match to keep you in perfect order, but certainly the fitness could have been there, even if the match confidence or composure wasn't there yet. I'm there with you 100%, but I'm not going to dog him too much for it, because later in the year he responded appropriately.
100%.
I mean, no question about that. But you're right. The way he came out, there were plenty of questions. And as we moved into March, victory over Heidenheim, victory over Hoffenheim.
We got to talk about that bounce in Heidenheim.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I forgot about that one. So I was in Madison for a watch party with that one, with Jason and the crew in Madison. And that's one where I don't even know if ESPN showed the replay more than once. They should have shown it 7 or 8, every angle they had. I don't understand. I mean, like, if I go out and try to replicate that in my lawn, I couldn't do it, because I keep a nice pitch. It's nice and level. I roll it. It's, well maintained. I would assume Heidenheim, being in the Bundesliga, would not get a bounce like that on their pitch. I mean, they got rocks out there. I don't get it.
Wasn't there? I'm going to give Heidenheim a little bit. If it's finances, it's their first ever time in the top league, but whatever. It's like, also, if you're a keeper and that's your home pitch, know your bounces.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. Even if it's their first time in the Bundesliga, their finances are better than mine. Sitting here with a mortgage over my head in Michigan. But either way, certainly, when the bounces go your way, you got to take them. It had been up and down. We were bounced from Europa League. We looked shit against Wolfsburg. But hey, let's come back and take a victory on the road. So that looked good. And then following it up with a victory over Hoffenheim, who kind of lost their marbles at one point.
Come from behind again, much like the first meeting with Hoffenheim.
Yep.
Both games 3-1 wins.
And that was a depth scoring match because you had Koch, Ebimbe, and Götze with goals in that one.
125th anniversary celebrations
from, not exactly the guys you expect, and that's what I liked about it. Ebimbe, we'll talk about him in a little bit. Then there was the Dortmund fiasco, where we go up again against Dortmund and then drop 3 to them. I think I turned that one off early because the writing was on the wall. Just was not going to be the day. And then we went right back to our classic stretch of draws. Union 0-0, and then Werder Bremen 1-1. Inexcusable. The amount of points. I kept asking you this through the year because you're a stats guy with a phenomenal memory. The amount of points that we dropped to the bottom third of the table is not just the difference between us and Champions League. It's the difference of us and competing at the top of the table. That's how freaking bad we were against the bottom third.
Any other year, we don't make Europe with that.
Yes.
Any other year.
Yes. Absolutely.
That stretch, because it was the Dortmund game, we started off well, and then the Union Berlin game, I'm going to admit that was when my period of discontent really happened because I think I was frustrated for some things, and then that was like we talked about the Sir August Ferguson lifetime membership, but North Americans can't get memberships, or if you're not an official Frankfurt thing, they won't promote watch party. Yeah, we've heard us bitch about that. But point being, our frustration, our malaise was a parallel to the malaise we were seeing from the performances on. There were 3 matches then. 0-0 versus Union Berlin, a 1-1 versus Werder Bremen, which we were lucky to get a draw in that game. And then we got Stuttgart away. That's a wonderful choice for a 12:30 p.m. Eastern Saturday lunchtime tilt. Get 3-0 Rand.
I'm going to go to that one for a second because that was mid-April. And I think everyone was at the point where we're like, we've been waiting 6 months for Stuttgart to fall apart. And we've been waiting 6 months for Frankfurt to move up from 6th. Could this be the day where things start to change a little bit? And they gave us an answer to that one in the first 15 minutes. Or 17 minutes when we were down 2-0. Absolute bloodbath there.
I stopped watching that game. I will admit that one.
Yeah, I think I did too. Rebound against Augsburg.
Come from behind.
The match down in Bayern. I wasn't even too upset. The Harry Kane run out because of a defensive collapse. A 2-0, I think it was. I mean, Kevin Trapp had to play somebody, and I think the defense pinched a little bit too high and got caught. The Hugo Ekitike goal in that one, that was a character kind of goal. That was him giving us a glimpse of what he can be going forward.
We need to rewind one match further because the Hugo Ekitike that we're like, okay, this is who we're getting, is the matchup before Friday afternoon tilt Augsburg, who had Augsburg beat us by 2 goals. They jump us for 6th. And we started off good in that game, but they went through us like a knife through hot butter. Vargas, great strike, right? They almost made it 2. But Ekitike, I think, got the equalizer in that one, if I'm not mistaken, or the first one.
No, he got the second.
He got the second one. But for us to then roll out and get a 3-1 win, it was getting that feeling back And I think you and I recorded
that's the one where Omar Marmoush ran out the third goal that was compared so well to the
Milja Kasinovic.
The Gasinovic goal in a cup final. And then they go back to Bayern and, as I mentioned before, played not a statistically great game, but certainly kept Bayern confused. I think we're in Bayern's head a little bit. I mean, they've had a rough season. They didn't win the title. By that point, the title was about wrapped up, either that week or the week after. But, oh no, it was the week prior to that. But, we're giving Bayern fits because we're the kind of team that you can't really prepare for because we can't even prepare ourselves. And that's a hell of a proposition to try to scout against. They don't know our lineup because, hell, we don't even know our lineup from week to week. So I think that's what makes a team like Bayern is so analytically dominant, and they use the numbers in their favor, and they structure every match to take advantage of those strengths thanks to the depth of their lineup. I was pretty pleased with that. The 2-1, not a moral victory. I don't believe in those. But I felt like if anyone was going to step up and maybe take it to Leverkusen, maybe it's the team nobody can prepare for. So we go to Leverkusen. We host Leverkusen with their perfect record on the line. Not perfect. Their unbeaten record on the line, Garrett. And I got on here and started saying, I don't think we're going to do it, but I think we can do it. How'd that one end up?
Well, they gave us a glimmer of hope because we equalized. And this is a Leverkusen side that were like their B plus, maybe B minus squad. And that dude got to lose 5-1 at home. I don't care that they won the Meisterschaft. We normally dominate that fixture at home.
I'll be honest, I don't care if Manchester City is walking in with the highest payroll on the planet. Nobody pushes you around 5-1 at home. That was a match to me where we gave up. We're into the month of May. We can see the finish line. Guys are going through the motions. The only one that really showed me a lot of fight was Hugo Ekitike.
Yep.
The back line was a disaster. The amount of guys, Chaka, first of all, that guy is unbelievable. The way he scored that first goal was amazing. Patrick Schick looked like, Ronaldo out there. These guys that are very good players. They're champions of the Bundesliga for a reason.
Frimpong.
But champions don't beat top 6 teams by a 5-1 score.
Right.
That was disappointing to me. I was like, I think you'd asked me to cover Twitter, the Twitter feed that game, and I was like, fuck. And then I'm so glad you added me to do it because I think I just was like, how over the top sarcastic could I be with these responses? And people were feeling it. The English English speakers were feeling it. The German speakers. It was therapy. And you want to know what the fucked up thing about all this is when you look at this whole season? Is that after we beat Mainz on January 26th, we only won 3 times the remaining almost 4 months of the season. And I think that goes to show you just how bad the middle of the table was. That nobody could catch up to 6, despite the fact we were barely putting up a point a game.
Hoffenheim tried at the end with Darmstadt and Bayern Munich's help.
Yep. And, we closed out the year after Leverkusen, the draw against Gladbach, and in the finale for Sebastian Roeder and Makoto Hasebe, a good outing for the group, I thought, against Leipzig with absolutely nothing on the line. Shouldn't say nothing because there was a small chance for Hoffenheim. But guys played their asses off and came back from 2 down. It's about time that it happened the other way around. And it worked out in our favor with Ekitike and Marmoush with a penalty there at the end. I didn't watch because I just didn't want to say I put every breath into that. I went back and watched the replay for the Hasebe and Rhoda tribute because I wanted to be there for those guys and see their moment. But it was one of those things where the ups and downs of the season are so taxing. And when you do this podcast and you feel the need to watch every fucking minute of the frustration, it really wears on you.
I'll be honest.
It really does.
I
know you checked out for a few weeks. I checked out at the end. It's just one of those things where it hurts too much to watch something you love. I'm not going to say don't love us back, because they really do. But when they don't give you the attention that you crave, it's hard to give it back. Mm-hmm. So, all right, Garrett. We spent 45 minutes reviewing the season that was. My voice needs a break. We're going to take a quick break, uncap a drink, and then we're going to talk about the table. We're going to talk about some stats. Really quickly here, what have you been eating? What have you been drinking lately?
So, really been focusing. It's June. I love
Wendy's?
this weather. Oh yeah, still Wendy's. Right, Wendy's on there.
Oh, okay.
Actually had Del Taco tonight. Taco Tuesday. I've been on a big oatmeal kick daily, just for like good health reasons and stuff like that.
Good.
I had some Faygo Moon Mist. I took in a glass of Moon Mist watching that crazy Bochum Dusseldorf promotion relegation playoff final. Which, if y'all in this country wonder why we clamor for promotion relegation, is moments like that. But I think, so I've just been kind of sticking with the usuals for a bit, but also like, maintaining, I think, which is what we have to do.
Good shit. Good. So I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to tell anyone what I'm drinking right now. But in my fridge, I've got a nice fresh stock of Schlenkerla Rock beer from Bamberg, Germany. My favorite beer on this planet. Really good smoked beer from Bamberg, the home of the smoked beer. But I had a good one. Where was I the other day? I had a really good German beer, and I had to look it up because it was so small. I don't remember. I'm going to have to share it on Twitter. I don't remember what it was. But I found myself, as the season went on, thinking less and less about how can I support the team with new beer, because what we drink affects the play, and thinking how can I go back to coffee for these matches, because it was so difficult to watch. But so segment 2, we're going to do table talk, and I got some very interesting stats for you. So stand by, segment 2. Welcome back, segment 2, episode 316 of Hey Eintracht Frankfurt, episode 38 on the season. We are going to end our season review with a little bit of table talk here, and then some interesting stats that I dragged out of the HEFpod statistics zone. So, Garrett, let's start with the table. We all know the top, Bayer Leverkusen ending the domination, more than decade domination from Bayern Munich. Leverkusen's title, the first unbeaten season in Bundesliga history, right? 60 years, first time unbeaten. Is that correct?
And I think Leverkusen was a Europa final victory away from an unbeaten season. Kudos to our fan friends in Bergamo, Italy, and Atalanta. Achieving an A in Dublin. Shout out to our Detroit News person who covers Detroit City, who on his honeymoon, but a Liverpool fan, bought a Bayer Leverkusen hat from the shop beforehand to watch Atalanta kick the shit out of him. That was 28 wins, 6 draws, 89 goals scored, 24 goals allowed, 90 points.
Domination. Their plus 65 goal differential. For perspective, that was 16 more than Bayern Munich, who was second with a plus 49. It does not get much
26
much
plus
more
39
than that.
Plus 39 for Munich, so it was almost a 30 goal difference.
49.
Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm looking at Stuttgart. My bad.
All right, so So as we talked about a lot, the UEFA coefficient that was determining the extra Champions League positions as the tournament changes format. One of those slots went to the Bundesliga, so the top 5 go on to the Champions League. Could have been top 6 if Dortmund did their thing, but let's be honest, we would have gotten slaughtered in Champions League next year.
We deserve
So
it.
Bayer Leverkusen, Stuttgart, Bayern Munich, Leipzig, and Dortmund go to Champions League 1 through 5. Eintracht Frankfurt and Hoffenheim go to Europa League with the 6 and 7 spot, and Heidenheim in the 8th spot. Somehow,
Congratulations to Frank Schmidt and the crew.
They better fix that pitch at Heidenheim. If
I
they're
don't think it's going to be UEFA
European
coefficient. They're going to have to travel. I don't think it's going to meet regulations.
I mean, if they keep getting bounces like that, it's going to turn into hockey, where the players are going out testing the board. They're going to test that pitch in warm-ups because the balls are bouncing everywhere. But at the bottom of the table, in the bottom 3 spots, Bochum, we know what happened there in the relegation promotion playoff. Cologne and Darmstadt, the automatic relegation. We'll see you guys later. Coming up from 2 Bundesliga next year, FC St. Pauli and Holstein Kiel. St. Pauli held off the title there at the end by a single point. Every single year, that is the best title race in all of European football, in my opinion.
I think that promotion, and honestly, if you haven't checked it out, ESPN Plus has it. Go back and check out at least some highlights of that promotion relegation playoff between VfL Bochum to stay up versus Fortuna Düsseldorf trying to get promoted, because it is what you want to see if you're a football fan, even as neutrals. I will say, despite the Bundesliga, if you're going, my buddies that I met in Dusseldorf 4 years ago, they get to have 2 matchups with Köln. The Ryan going to be silly.
Garrett, let's talk stats for a minute. I got something here that correlates to the table. So we ran through the top 5, 6 in the table. Let me tell you something about Eintracht Frankfurt's scoring issues. Now we're talking strictly Bundesliga play here, but we know how bad Eintracht was scoring the ball. In 34 matches, we had 51 goals scored to 50 against. It's a +1 for those that can't do the math, because American public schools, But let me just give you this. The top 6 teams in the Bundesliga shots on target this year: Bayern Munich, 628. And then Leverkusen, Leipzig, Stuttgart, Bochum, and Borussia Dortmund is 6. 5 of those 6 teams are going to Champions League next year. The 6th of those teams, Borussia Dortmund, had 497 shots on target. Eintracht Frankfurt finished with 393 shots on target. So I'm not done with that yet. Goal scoring on the season by club. The top 5, Bayern Munich, Bayer Leverkusen, Stuttgart, Leipzig, Dortmund. All 5 of them are going to the Champions League. You shoot the ball, you score goals, you go to Champions League. You make more money. You can afford better players. Eintracht Frankfurt, 51 goals, good for 8th. That's not close enough to break the top ranks. So if you look at having the fewest shots on goal, actually we tied Heidenheim for the fewest shots, but we have the fewest shots and we're mid-table on goals scored. So really that's not a horrible shooting percentage, but it's not good enough. If we want to get to that next level, here's another indicator for you. Shots that hit the post or the crossbar. We were last in the league with 3. The teams at the top, the ones that shoot the ball the most, not surprising.
Right.
Leverkusen, Bayern Munich, Stuttgart, Mainz, Freiburg, top 5. 3 of those are going to Champions League. So my point being, we need to find a way next season to reinvent this offense where we're not just content passing the ball around. I was really happy with our 86, 87% passing percentage through a lot of the games this year. But again, a lot of those were playing for draws. And it didn't sit well with me when I knew these stats were bad, but that's really bad. And there's got to be a way to improve. We're not going to go out and be big spenders, but there's got to be positions to improve. Let's talk.
I got a better
Go
one
ahead.
for you, because we can't do a season recap without fucked up stat time.
Oh yeah, here we go.
So I'm not going to count Hoffenheim and Heidenheim because we did the double over both those teams and we finished above them. I am going to go from 9th to 18th in the table. So Werder Bremen, Freiburg, Augsburg, Wolfsburg, Mainz, Mönchengladbach, Union Berlin, Bochum, Köln, and Darmstadt. Each of them we played twice. So that's 20 matches. 27 points gained total out of those 20 matches against those teams.
I hate you so much right now. That's just a number.
Is that my most fucked up stat yet?
It's certainly the most, like, there's nothing obscure about that. It's a very direct point that we left so many points on the table against bad sides that had we collected half of those, we're in the next competition up. I mean, we had an opportunity to be better. We saw moments where we saw glimpses of what could be, but there's just nothing sustained there. So maybe this is a good point to say we saw some new faces this year, some that we were pleased with, some that we might have forgotten existed. Let's go. I'm going to give you a list of names first, and you tell me who you were pleased with their debut and who you wouldn't mind ever not seeing again. So we got Ngankum, Koch, Pacho, Shkiri, Marmoush, Chaibi, Van de Beek, and Ekitike.
What about Larson?
Well, I have an issue with him because he's so young and just still kind of they I don't know, they got the bubble wrap on him, it feels like. I don't know what their intention is with him. For me, Van de Beek's, I mean, he's good as gone anyway, but Marmoush, extremely valuable. I think he's got big upside. Where are you with Ngankum?
That was a letdown. I was excited. I blame the Lokomotiv match for that because he looked like, a Pinewood Derby car after the cannon came out of the ass and it started rolling because he was just going in there. But I think that was just because he looks that way against that level of play. And the game against Levski to get us through to Conference League group stages. But other than that, frustrating it on there. Van de Beek, shattered confidence. It's telling when, he gets subbed off at halftime in his home debut. Marmish earned it. I'm curious to see if he really takes another step this year. Now that he's got double digits for the first time, I think from where we saw him at the start of the year to the end, he started to become a bit more clinical in chances. Shots that he was missing, he was starting to finish. Shkiri, loved him early on. I think injury bugs affected him. I don't think he was the same coming back from AFCON.
AFCON absolutely derailed his performance. Now, I don't know how he played there, but certainly when he came back, he seemed very skittish. He didn't have that same aggressive attitude he had before the break.
Faris Chaibi, great first half, but kind of disappeared a little bit in the second half. And this is where Dino was starting to play with the shape a bit because we were doing our traditional 3-4-2-1 for a lot of the year, but once Ekitike started to bag goals, we seemed to go down more of a 4-4-2 route. Marmoush and Ekitike up top, and it was starting to work. And it wasn't completely broken, so I didn't see the need to deviate from that. Hugo Ekitike, the last month of the season, showed I think what I think Marcus Kroesche was trying to tell us to see. We're seeing more of that. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Andre Silva's end of the 2020 season, when he started bagging goals regularly and was like, hey, here's that talent that everybody's been talking about, and then he went nuts the next year. I'm hoping we see something like that. We saw enough that we were like, let's make the deal permanent. So we know Hugo Ekitike is an Eintracht Frankfurt player.
You gotta credit Marcus Kroescher for having the vision on that, because a lot of us were against it. At the time he pulled the trigger on that deal, we hadn't yet seen him break out of his shell. There were still questions about his fitness, and they did their homework and they knew he was their guy. Yeah. So on that note about him, I got 2 more questions. Who was your MVP for this season?
God, it's gonna be tough. What do I?
I mean, there's an easy answer up front with Marmoush, but I went a little bit different direction with this.
Honestly, I'm going different too. It's not. Because Marmoush is the score goals and get assists. That's his job. Robin Koch.
That's a pretty good one. I went with another defender in Pacho. He played the most minutes for us. Yeah. He played 33 matches, which I think was the most on the team. He played the most minutes in the league. And really that defense was rebuilt. Tuta, we've been a little tough on him, but he's now one of the more experienced guys on that back line, even though he's only 24. But I thought Koch and Pacho really helped him, Tuta, a lot. And I'm excited to see what that defense can be next season. I would give Pacho the MVP just because I think things could have been a lot worse without his stability in the replacement that he had for Indica.
And I think for me, William Pacho was so steady. You know those players that they don't blow you away, but because of how stable that they are. Like, I think Robin Koch had some big goals and big moments for us, and his play is earned him back onto the German side, for Euros. And getting the armband, and for him to get the armband when Trapp is out is a sign. I think that it's like, hey, we see him kind of a later. I'm going to kind of go most like a dark horse that I will honorable mention, just because I think he had such an improved year this year compared to last year, is Ansgar Knopf. You're seeing glimpses of him. Yeah, he's still not completely finished, but I feel a lot better about him now than I did at the end of last season.
Yeah. And, we talked about the attack not being able to score goals. We made moves to try and pick up more of that size up front with the signing of Sasha Kalajdzic. Unfortunately, the injury after 5 league matches really stunted that. So on that note, who are you most looking forward to seeing next season? Whether it's if they improve or a rebound season, who is it for you? Just of the players we know that are going to be here, who are you most looking forward to seeing?
I think somebody whose stat line kind of surprised me, because I think he was not fully consistent. When Dino Mbembe is at his best, he can be an absolute nightmare for opposing teams, because he can play centrally, he can play wide, he can play as one of the 10s. In fact, Mbembe had 10 goals in all competitions this year. 5 in the Bundesliga, 3 in Conference League, and 2 in the Pokal. But again, because he's so inconsistent, we didn't feel like we're seeing the most out of him. I want to see if he takes that next step. Huh?
For all the same reasons, I was going to say you stole my player for next season. I think he's big.
Another guy that I feel like I want to see if he gets his chance, because we do have some players we know that are coming in that have already been determined. I want to see if one of these new guys can make their spot, like a Nathaniel Brown, or who else did we bring in? Kind of sure. I'm trying to remember, but I feel like, will he get a chance in here? Will we see a more consistent Niels and Cuckoo? Aurelio Boot is someone who I think has become a solid squad player, but he's kind of like a wing-back version of Pacho in that he does stuff quietly, but I don't feel like we've seen the most out of him. Does Hugo Larsson take the next steps too? Because I think Larsson was getting tired by the end of the year, and I don't. I mean, when you're 19 going on 20, or he might have already turned 20, it's a lot of football, a lot of competitive.
Does Paxton Aronson have a future with Eintracht Frankfurt?
All depends on how he trains this going into the start of the season.
Yeah,
has Paxton Aronson put aside?
He keeps getting looks from the U.S. national side, and for the amount of matches they have coming up this summer, that's a tremendous opportunity for him to put his name back in the radar too. In the HEFpod statistics zone, our analytics, our highest rated player for this past season in Bundesliga play, Jens Grahl, 7.4 in 2 matches played. Let's go to the regular players. Omar Marmoush was our highest graded player, followed by Hugo Ekitike in 14 matches. So I'm going to go with Ekitike being my guy that I'm most looking forward to next year. His slow start here for fitness or whatever you want to blame it on, his own motivations, he's got the right attitude. Everything he posts on social media, everything that you hear him say in interviews, he wants to be there, and he signed that deal knowing the expectations that they had for him. And I really believe he has the ability, the way we saw him break out through 14 matches, the 4 goals he scored, 2 assists, and I'm going to even say the 3 cards, shows his aggressiveness and his willing to use his undersized frame to get in there and get a little bit dirty. And I have all the confidence. He may not be the highlight reel that he was, in the last few weeks here this season, but I certainly think his overall stat line next year is really going to pop.
I think if he gets north of 15 goals in league play and over there, it'll be really interesting to see where we wind up in the table. Because
if we could get some of these creative guys like Ebimbe and Mario Götze, if he's still around next season, they're the kind of guys, the talented passing that those two can do, combined with Ekitike's creativity, could really cause trouble if they got a solid summer training the 3 of them together. Yeah.
So I think I'm curious to see, because obviously we're in June. I don't know, will we make any more moves? We got 2 months before the start of the Bundesliga campaign. We have, Euros coming up. We got Copa America coming up. So a lot of, fixtures. Some of our Eagles will be abroad playing for their national teams. Will we be seeing anyone else? Will we be making moves and bringing people in after this too? Especially now that, we didn't make the Champions League, but we're in the Europa League, which is a step up from where we were last year in Conference League. New format. So how exciting of a prospect is this for, say, if you're like an Augsburg, somebody from an Augsburg or Bremen or lower, or from another team, like, say, a Rennes or anything like that, and you're not playing European football right now, but something like Frankfurt is that a prospect that you want to go to and play? And does that fit the vision and, the type of player that we want to bring in?
That's kind of loaded. Give me your take.
My take is, I think Frankfurt's becoming more and more of an attractive place for people to come to in the last couple of years. It helps when we've won a European trophy. Like the players that we've landed. Lately, it seems like we're becoming a place where a younger developing talent, I'm wondering if we keep going in this path. We've seen it with guys like Andre Silva and Rando Kolmawani, Jesper Lundstrom, even Gabriel So, Philip Kostic, guys that have made their name here and have moved on for a fee, bigger fee. Is Omar Marmoush the next guy for that? Is Hugo Ekitike going to be the next guy for that? That'll be interesting.
I think they're both going to be back for now.
Right.
I think if Marmoush has a strong first half, but it's overshadowed by Ekitike, and we find some depth scoring from someone else, maybe a healthy Sasha Kalajdzic, maybe Marmoush becomes expendable.
Yeah, and I'm thinking more not just
the same value.
And I'm not just thinking this season. I'm always thinking for after this season
down the
too.
line. Yeah, I mean, if all three of those guys are productive, we're going to be in a good position. I'd be thrilled if 2 of the 3 put up numbers. Let me ask you about one more person that we haven't questioned here before we wrap this one up. Dino Toppmoller. What is your confidence rating for him on a scale of 1 to 10?
I was going to say 6.9, but I don't really feel nice about him. I'm going to say 6.5, 6.6, because I have a little bit of an interesting perspective here, because I have 2 Eagles that I follow. And my English Eagles have in my opinion, someone that brought a trophy to Frankfurt in Oliver Glasner. And I am seeing what that team has become in 2.5 months. Some of the best football I've ever seen Palace play, period, and all that. And I am wondering, were we, in the Frankfurt side of things, were we a bit quick in parting ties? We've had inconsistent routes with Oliver Glasner. We had long stretches without wins. It happened both seasons. He managed us. But this team had balls and fight. And I'm not seeing that so much from Dino in the tempo and also in the, attitude, or when you have the attitude, have it smart. The attitude this year was reckless at times. Christian Jakic, Futkeu in the Pokal, those moments, right? Where, you get hot, but you weren't thinking. So we were kind of a pushover at times, I thought.
So you give him a 6.5. Here's my concern. It is one thing to struggle through a season with a new boss, a lot of turnover, losing your leading scorer the first week of the year.
Yeah.
But we had a good amount of senior veteran leadership here.
Right.
From Kevin Trapp to Mario Götze, and obviously Makoto Asebe and Sebastian Rhoda, the 2 senior guys on the team, that there were no locker room issues. It would have been much easier for this group to fall apart. We had some boneheaded plays, Jakic and Fuku and that kind of stuff. I think Philip Max got into some shit at some point. But overall, guys kept their heads for the most part. And I attribute a lot of that to veteran leadership, but also in the game of soccer, in the game of football, when players give up on their manager, the manager's sacked. That's just how it goes. Once you lose confidence in the leader, the whole house crumbles. And that didn't happen here. We saw weak points, but I think the players are there for it. We didn't see the effort we want to see, and that's where it's the responsibility of the senior guys returning. Robin Koch, Kevin Trapp. It's time for Tuta to be a vocal leader. We need to get back to that point where, even though we might lose a lot of games, you're going to have a hell of a time taking us down. For you and me being Lions fans, that Dan Campbell mentality. You might knock us down, but when we get up, we're going to bite your kneecaps. That's what used to define this Eagles roster, and we didn't have that biting kneecaps mentality this year.
Nope.
And that's what really concerns me. Now, the fact they didn't give up on Dino and they fought for 6th and they held off that run by Hoffenheim, I'm willing to give them the shot. I mean, we're not going to win the league next year. We're not going to win Europa League next year. But if we can see improvement, maybe one place up in the league and qualify for Champions League, I'd freaking love it. If we could run to a cup semifinal, I'd love that. We need to see progression. Now that Dino's no longer a rookie in the senior manager role, it's time to see progression forward. What I would love to see is the same manager here 3 years in a row. Whomever that is, whatever their qualifications, I don't care. Give me the same voice for 3 seasons to progress a roster from 6th to 5th to 3rd or some sort of forward progression in the league. I would love to be competitive next year. It's too early to make predictions because there's going to be so much turnover going on, especially with the Euros this summer highlighting certain guys.
Right. We have a schedule reveal on the 4th of July, which will be that's when the Bundesliga and the Bundesliga schedules will be released. So we will know who we're going to be playing the weekend of August 23rd to start the season off.
And that's probably going to be our next time on air. Of course, I can't forget to mention Eintracht Frankfurt is headed to the United States. We will do something for that in Louisville. There will be some kind of get-together. I happen to be working in Europe right during that time, but I told them I'm absolutely coming back before that matchup with Louisville City, July 30th in Louisville. Beautiful arena down there, Lynn Family Stadium. Hate Louisville City. So if anyone's unsure about this one, if you're just a casual, not sure who to follow, hit me up. We'll get you an Eintracht Frankfurt shirt.
There's also a group because we're also doing a friendly. There's also going to be a friendly, and for those that are in Texas in particular, just before Louisville City, there's a friendly against Juarez. I know there's a group planning doing the tour. I am to be determined right now for Louisville, just because costs and everything are increasing these days. So I'm on the TBD fence right there on that. But agree with Chris. Not a Louisville City guy. I've been to Louisville there and back twice to watch my local lose, which were better results than the 2 times I haven't gone down there to see them. But, it's a good chance if you have the opportunity to go down there, meet some new people, see some cool things going on, get some perspectives. Or if you're in Texas, maybe see what you need to do to go to Juarez or to the Juarez friendly, or even hang out in El Paso. So,
yep, for sure. And we'll definitely get something out before mid-July. We'll do something for the schedule reveal, because that's going to be highlighting the way that the early season schedule is going to weave into our Europa League play is going to be interesting. It's a step up in competition this year internationally, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the moves we're going to make to try to stay competitive in that realm. Garrett, what do you got to sign off here? Anything else to close out the 23-24 season?
I will say that while at the end, it's a weird thing. While I was incredibly frustrated about this year for Eintracht Frankfurt, both on the field and some of the things we've talked about off the field, whether it's that or even just how the failed investor deal, all these type of things and parallels. At the end of the day, Eintracht Frankfurt improved from last year in the sense that they went from qualifying for Europa Conference League to qualifying for Europa League. So the fact that we went through all of this malaise and frustrations and venting and discontent and anger and absolute rage recording at times, to look back and be like, hey, we went up a spot from the previous season. It can only get better from here, right?
I love the positive spin to close things out. I'm right there with you. Garrett, where are we finding you on social media?
All right, let's see these days. Twitter, because I'm never calling it X, I'm calling it Twitter. Twitter, Instagram, Discord, GM Comats, local stuff, since if you don't have, you're looking for a US club to follow, Chris and I got Detroit City here. 451 DET, TMS, NX Detroit, the Majors Detroit, covering all Detroit sports. You get to see me bitch about the Pistons and other sports. Yeah, tune in to all our fun stuff. And if you're not in the Hey Eintracht Frankfurt Discord, get in the Hey Eintracht Frankfurt Discord because we talk more than Frankfurt. How I'm looking at all the non-footy channels and how much notification stuff's going on there about guitars and home brewing and stuff. Honestly, get in the Discord.
Yeah, for sure. All of our links to the show available at HEFpod.com. Of course, I'm on all the social media channels at C and the D313, Peloton, Instagram, Discord, and the rest. And of course, I can't forget about everyone else that partakes in this show, the hosts that come in and out throughout the year, Jason and Miles and Matt, spot appearances this year from Roman, and of course, Nathan in St. Louis, the production he does every single week, the show art, it's outstanding. I've got a nice set of coasters on my table that are all Nathan's show art. He's fantastic. He does a lot of the work. This is not an easy production to put together for 6 people in basically 6 different time zones, and he gets all the sound together and makes it work well. And then the show art on top of that. Miles, who created our new branding package in 2023. I got coasters. I got stickers. I still got some T-shirts coming in. So if anybody wants those, reach out to me. And, of course, Brian in Kansas City, this is his show. He's the brainchild behind it all. He is pulling the strings like a puppet every week, making sure that things work, putting together special interviews with some really cool guests, guys like Derek Ray and Phil Bonney and others. That, just really this is a production by fans, for fans, because we are fans. And it's a labor. I mean, it's after 11 o'clock here in Michigan, it's a labor of love, and I would do it every single day if the resources provided for it. And of course, our theme music, Fórza SGE by Frankfurt and Eintracht legend Tankard. Find them at Tankard Official and at reapermusic.de/Reaper. Our outro music, Hey Eintracht Frankfurt by Roy Hammer and D. Perlinas. Find them at royhammer.de. And we appreciate everyone listening to this show. Season who knows what, but episode 316, 38 this year, hopefully 38, maybe 40 next year. Let's go for 40. Why not? Let's go for 50. If you have anything you want to bring to the show, any topic ideas, hit us up at HEFpod.com or the social media channels linked there. And unless there's some crazy news coming, we will talk to you in about 1 month in mid-July for a summer review. Until then, cheers.
We can run this group all day. Oh, we did not run that group.
Hey, Eintracht Frankfurt, la 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 la. Hey, Eintracht Frankfurt, la 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 la.